Sweet the whispers in your ear whenever ember wanders near.
I want to do a Caleb video. Okay, I want to start off tonight with a Caleb video, but it's not a financial audit. Okay, I'm not talking about doing a financial audit. Caleb put out a short video. It's like a 9-minute video where he goes on CNN. The video is entitled, "I Got Confronted by CNN." So I am legit curious about Caleb going head to head with one of the news anchors from CNN. I thought this could be very interesting because, as you know, CNN tries to pull the bullshit, and Caleb is not about the bullshit. So is he about to rip him up? I don't know. So I am curious. So let's see what's going on with this.
I just launched the brand new Hammer Elite app, available on every major platform. To celebrate the app launch, I'm offering 30% off the annual plan in the month of June only. Plus, I have an exclusive offer just for you.
But I'll only have 1,000 available to purchase.
You'll get lifetime access to the entire Hammer Elite catalog and my Hammer for Life box packed with limited edition merch. Download the Hammer Elite app by using the link in the description or pinned comment down below. This is the best membership you'll ever join, and that's a promise.
No bingo. No bingo, because this is not a financial audit. This is just part of his podcast.
So I want to bring in Caleb Hammer. He hosts Financial Audit on YouTube and is the CEO of DollarWise. He's been described as a cross between Dave Ramsey and Jerry Springer. I'll let you fact check that, see how you feel on that. But when it comes to getting your personal finances in line, and you know, Caleb, you see these headlines about Americans struggling with their credit card debts. Now $1.25 trillion according to the New York Federal Reserve Bank.
Wow.
What do you see people spending on that isn't quite working? Like, what are the biggest mistakes that you find people are making?
Cars.
Well, the reality is 40% of Americans right now can't even cover a $400 emergency. Yet, when I look into the data and I look into their spending on my show specifically, which
I don't think it's student loans. It's only, I think he's only going to say student loans if you're getting a dog shit degree, because that's been his biggest complaint is if you know, getting student debt is not in and of itself a bad thing. But getting student debt when you're getting a bullshit liberal arts degree that won't get you a decent paying job, that's where he has a problem. Like, even with good degrees now they don't pay. Yeah, that's a problem, but Caleb never like really gives people shit for getting a degree in something that is functionally usable. Like, the people that go in and get like the history degrees or the liberal arts degrees or the psychology degrees, shit like that, where it's like the market's oversaturated and you can't, there's no way you're going to use them. That's where he gives them shit for making a bad choice. Or the people that are like permanent students, they are forever students. The gender studies degree. But yeah, the people that go in, they get student loans to get a degree, and then they get deferments on it, and then they sign up for another degree. So they're permanent and they're constantly racking up student debt, and they're permanently in college. Like, that's something that he will criticize not. So student loans in and of themselves, he doesn't have a huge issue with, depending. One of the things that he has a problem on, spending money on bullshit, i.e. the DoorDash, or, you know, getting like the Monster, the energy drinks from the gas station. And then there's also like overspending on cars. Yep, that was the other one that I was going to, where people buy these insane cars because they want like $40,000 cars or $60,000 cars, and they get huge fucking balloon payments, and they've got interest rates of like, you know, like 20% interest rates, and they already, like, their budget didn't allow for that in the first place, but they really wanted it, and so they got this huge car payment. Like, I think those might be the things that basically he's going to say that most people will, like, he's going to criticize most people for doing that, and buying that, and like buying homes or getting rentals in areas that they cannot afford. like trying to basically live above their means in terms of the location, what they spend on a house or what they're spending on an apartment, and then like trying to basically job market is okay. Job market stuff, you may not talk about that, but I think it's gonna be spending money on bullshit and housing expenses that are well beyond their means and cars well beyond their means.
Are the people messing up, to be clear, but usually those people who can't afford that $400 emergency, they're still going into the gas station, grabbing an energy drink every day, stopping somewhere to eat multiple times a day, door dashing at a 90% premium,
spending money on bullshit.
Those conveniences that are small but really add up. The death of 1,000 cuts is really hurting the household budget at the end of the day. And of course, they're putting them on credit cards.
The coffee, not so much. Coffee is not as expensive, and most people are not buying coffee out. Most people will just brew coffee at home. The energy drinks, though, God, yes, we see it all the time on these financial odds. We're spending money on bullshit, spending money on bullshit. We're seeing like there is the Starbucks, but they're getting like the craft coffees. They're getting like the iced coffees that are like $7, not like just regular cup of coffee. That's not what people are spending money on, like in terms of out for coffee. It's the the Starbucks mocha frappuccino grandes or the Monster Energy drinks that they're buying 4, 5, 6, 7 of those a day. And and of course he always uses that opportunity to basically do a Gamer Supps ad, which haha, Gamer Supps, I'm drinking my anime girl thighs. Delicious. Love to be sponsored by you. I'm just saying. Well, yeah, that's typically is his typical spending money on bullshit.
The household budget at the end of the day, and of course they're putting them on credit cards, which have a close to average interest rate across the country of around 22%. Imagine that compounding on a monthly basis.
Gamer Supps. Hopefully one day we can use code thighs at checkout.
You really think I'm gonna use code thighs? Come on. It's what was I just going to say? Yeah, and the credit cards thing too. There's been this really, he's right. Like they're putting this all on credit cards, and this is why I tell you guys whenever we do a financial audit is like, do not go hog wild on credit cards. I personally have one single credit card. One. That's all I have. It doesn't even have a very big limit. It's only got like a couple $1,000 limit on it, so it's not it does not have a really high limit. I predominantly when I buy things, I predominantly use my debit card for my purchases. I will use my credit card maybe like once a week when I go grocery shopping, just so I basically have a purchase that I can then immediately pay off and zero out the balance immediately. And for people that are in a lower income, that the whole concept, because people with the credit cards, it's like you always hear the excuse, well, I'm trying to build credit, so I buy everything on credit cards. Except the problem is what they don't realize is that half of them, when they're doing this, they're either only paying the minimum monthly, which means they're getting slapped with interest rates of at least 22. Typically, we've been seeing on financial audit 30% interest rate, and so they're getting the shit slapped out of them with interest rates. So they're basically going to be spending triple to pay off their balance. And how many of them are not even paying off their minimum monthlies, and then they're getting late fees and everything? So this is why I always tell you guys, if you're going to get a credit card, get one credit card. Have it a low balance, use it maybe once a week for groceries or perhaps gas in the car, and then as soon as you make that purchase, immediately pay that dollar amount off. Immediately. Zero after you make the purchase, zero the balance back out and pay it immediately. Because you will still gain that positive credit score balance, or you will still get that positive credit score bump, but at the same time, you're not going to be overspending, so you are digging yourself into a deeper and deeper financial hole. Like the credit card realistically should be there for you for emergencies. Like if you have like a couple $1,000 credit card, you should have that there for emergencies. That would be the primary use. Use it once or twice a week just so you can build up your positive credit, but primarily you should keep it there for emergencies. Otherwise, use your debit card for your purchases, because that way you prevent yourself from overspending. It's like if you don't have the money in the bank, then you're not going to be able to buy. And that's why I like with me, I primarily use my debit card for 99.9% of my purchases because I learned a long time ago. Like I've told you guys, a couple years ago, I was in a very bad financial state. I was not doing well financially at all. And I learned from being in that poor financial state, okay, I have to like get rid of any and all credit cards that I have one credit card with a somewhat low balance to it, and only use my debit card for any purchases because that way I will not overspend without realizing it. Because if I don't have the money, then I'm not going to be able to make the payment. And so ever since I was in that poor financial state, I have been very cognizant and aware of what the hell I'm spending money on. And it's, one reason why I don't spend a lot of money on anything. It's why I'm extremely frugal. It's why I don't go out anywhere. I don't go spending
Amber
money
Paradox
on next
is so
anything.
cute.
Why
I
it's
can't
why it
handle
takes
She's
me,
just so, she's so cute.
months and months to just make a decision on any significant purchases because I don't want to get back into that poor financial state that I came from. I'm just like, that is always on my mind whenever it comes to buying anything. That, where I was financially a couple years ago is very firmly still in my mind. And I don't want to lose that because that is the key to being financially sound personally is, don't go crazy with the spending. Be frugal. Don't spend where you don't need to. It's like my thought process to this day has still been, okay, do I need this? Is this a want or is this a need? And it's like, well, now I'm in a financial position that I can spend much more freely if I choose to, but I choose not to because I want to keep that habit of being frugal, of being financially responsible. So I don't get back into that poor financial state that I came out of. I never want to be in that kind of situation again. I will do whatever I can to not be in that kind of a poor financial state again because I remember what it's like and I don't want to be there again. So that's why when I talk to you guys, I give you this advice, the best advice I can about this, because I don't want you guys to get into a poor financial state either. I want you guys to be financially sound. Not necessarily like rich or anything, but just to be able to live comfortably financially and not constantly having to be worried about, okay, am I going to pay for the gas or am I going to pay for the electric this month? Because I only have enough money to choose one of them. Like, that's why I try and offer this kind of advice, because I don't want you guys to be in that position where you have to make that kind of an impossible choice. So it's, when I talk about all this stuff, that's why I talk about it. Is I'm trying to, I'm not a financial expert, but like based on my own personal experiences, I'm trying to give you advice to just try and help you the best you can. Okay, and Kiro, thank you for the raid. I'm sorry I didn't thank you right away. I was rolling. I was just in the middle of my rants. So I didn't want to stop, but thank you for the double raid on Kick and Twitch. Thank you very much. I hope you had a wonderful stream. We're watching a little bit of Caleb Hammer when he was on CNN. So if you would like to please join us, please feel free to join us.
When you're still putting unnecessary spending on it, it just becomes an uncontrollable mess in the end.
And like everyone could be better with their personal habits. I'm sure we could go through each of ours and find like, oh, well, why are you spending this much on this much on that? How much of this is compounded by some of the systemic issues that we're running into right now, like inflation, and especially since the COVID pandemic?
Oh, no. Oh, shit. Okay, number one, he said systemic issues. I think that this reporter was hinting at something not financially related. He didn't say it, but you can tell he was hinting at something. Yeah, leading question. And then he said, what was it?
How much of this is compounded by some of the systemic issues?
Systemic issues. The CNN only refers to systemic issues for one specific thing. I'm legit amazed that he didn't say systemic issues like poor black families living in the ghetto. I'm legit amazed that he didn't bring that up. Honestly, you could tell he wanted to. When he said systemic, that is typically followed with, the poor black families. But then he said,
that we're running into right now, like inflation, and especially since the COVID pandemic?
okay, number one, inflation. Caleb has talked about this in the financial audit. Inflation has basically been reasonably on track with standard minimum wage increases. There was like one year I think that inflation outpaced minimum wage spending, but I think the next year it did correct, I believe. But he's talked about this before. He's talked about this in financial audit. He's talked about this on his own podcast too. Is that inflation and minimum wage minimum wage increases have been keeping pretty steady with one another. You might see a blip now and then, but they have been reasonably steady with, the inflation is not the big factor. It's not. Now, bringing up COVID, that is one of Caleb's pet peeves because he is sick and tired of it's been 6 fucking years. He is so fucking done with everybody blaming everything financial on COVID. He is fucking done with that bullshit. Every time he gets brought up in financial audit, he's like, COVID was 6 fucking years ago. Get over it. Things have recovered. So I'm curious what he's going to say about this. Granted, I know he's not going to go off. He's going to, he's going to be diplomatic about it, but I'm curious what his response is going to be.
Yeah, systemic issues certainly play an impact on everything. The thing to ask yourself in the end, and when I talk to people about their budgets, is can you control the systemic issues or not? You can go cast a vote and you can advocate for a position. Childcare, for example, it rivals now.
Hey, I love this. He took that question and went, fuck you. I'm going to answer it the way I'm going to answer the question that you should have asked. Oh, I love that. He completely is bypassing COVID. Bravo, Caleb. When the guy asked about COVID, he said,
issue isn't
no.
inflation, it's the sudden government and corporate decisions that cause sudden price spikes temporarily.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I said that's what I was talking about where Caleb has looked before with where inflation rates and minimum wage rates have stayed pretty balanced with one another. There was a blip like a year or two ago, but that was it. So I love the fact that Caleb just completely bypassed this question and said, okay, there are systemic things that, is this a systemic thing that you can't control? And then goes right into, why aren't you voting for the things that you want? Why don't you get to the polls and vote? Fucking love it.
And you can advocate for a position. Childcare, for example, it rivals now a college degree or a college tuition.
Yep.
And if you put 2 children together, it's more than the median cost of rent in any state in this country.
Yep.
These are
True.
systemic issues. But in the end, what you do have control over on a daily basis is where you choose to spend your money, whether or not you get that 2-bedroom if you don't need it. There are a lot of personal choices that impact your absolute daily life when you can't control whether or not we go into Iran. Sorry, not going to happen for the average person. I didn't really get a say in that one on that day.
Yes! Fuck yes! I love it. Caleb took this dumbass reporter's question of, well, what about these systematic things that the poor people can't cover? And Caleb turned it around and said, yeah, how about you make good decisions instead? He completely turned it around and said, how about we actually look at holding people accountable for their shit decisions when it comes to their spending instead of blaming everything on everyone else. He did bring up the childcare. That is a concern. Because with the childcare, it's not so much about like the nuclear family. It's depending on where you live, sometimes mom and dad may both need to work because of the financial situation. That is what it is. In certain financial situations, one parent may not, the mom may not be able to stay home and raise the kids. The dad maybe doesn't have a good enough job to cover everything of the household needs, which would allow the mom to stay home and take care of the household and take care of the kids. Many people are not living in a financial situation where they're able to do that. But childcare is a concern. Childcare, we've seen some of the financial audits where it's like, it's like $1,000 a year for childcare. Yeah, or even more. So yeah, like the cost of childcare is absolutely a concern. Maybe that's, now you could talk about how maybe the plethora of child daycare fraud that has been happening that has resulted in more American citizens not being able to avail themselves of government programs in the way that they are intended to help mitigate those childcare costs, because there's literally we're going to see $1 trillion in fraud from the childcare plus. And so that is a legit concern. But bravo to Caleb for turning this around and saying, yeah, it's also about the shit decisions people are making in their day-to-day lives in terms of their spending, where they're just like, well, I can spend whatever, and not thinking, can I actually spend this, or is this a want versus a need? So bravo on that.
But you can control your daily spending, and that's why we created DollarWise, the budgeting app, so people could control their daily spending.
I love it.
I think there's a tendency always from older generations to sort of look down and say, hey, when I was coming up, I was able to buy a house by 25 and start a family, and different world, but it happens. And I just wonder, what do you think older Americans should know about what Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming soon are facing, and what's different for them that maybe previous generations didn't have to deal with as much?
Based on the way people talk today, I don't know if modern Americans know the difference between want and need. Correct. You're absolutely correct. That's why whenever we do finance talk like this, is why I speak at length about that. Is because most Americans, fuck even Canadians, cannot tell the difference between want and need. I myself had that issue a couple years ago. Like I was a victim of not knowing the difference between want and need myself a couple years ago, which is why I speak at length about that whenever it comes up, because now that I'm in a position where I am financially secure, I want to basically impart any admittedly limited knowledge that I have on this subject to you guys, to hopefully try and aid you guys in helping to guide your decisions of understanding want versus need, and how you can best serve yourself financially. But you are absolutely correct that a great deal of the Western world probably is struggling with figuring out the difference between want versus need. When more people can start figuring that out, and by the way, this is also an issue in regards to social media, because that want and need, because social media plays a part in that, because how often are people getting bombarded with social media where they're influencers? God, I fucking hate that word in the first place. When they have influences, they're showing off stuff and going, oh, look at this. This is so cool. Use my code and get 20% off. And then people well, I don't want to be left out. They have the fucking FOMO thing. And so they'll just cave into the want because they think they consider their social status to be more important than their basic needs. That's something that also needs to change, is we need to start imparting on more people in the Western world that attaining social status is not that fucking important. That basically, having that cool little gadget that is all over TikTok just so you can say to your friends, hey, look, I've got that cool gadget that's all over on TikTok. Aren't I special? No, they're not. And we need to start nipping them in the butt. We need to start basically getting to a point where the bullshit TikTok status promos or FOMOs basically just is water off a duck's back, where social status is not that fucking important anymore. Social status does get you to places for some reason. Yeah, but does it get you to places that further you in life? The social status gets you places that does not advance you in terms of life, depending on who you know. Well, that's a whole different, no, that's a whole different thing. Because yes, basically having an in at a job, knowing someone that can get you a good job, that's a whole different thing. But what I'm talking about is basically the consumerism part of TikTok and Instagram and social media writ large. The abject consumerism and FOMO that we see on social media. That is a big part of the problem. Is we've seen it on Caleb's show, where you have people that are buying the shit off TikTok all the damn time. Why? Because it's for social status. It's the FOMO. It's these people want to tell their friends or their coworkers, look, I've got that hot new thing that's all over TikTok. Give me my social clout status now. Once people start figuring that out, that this is bullshit, this is not going to improve my life in any way, and social clout lasts for literally 5 seconds before people move on to the next thing. Because let's face it, trends have gone from a year in length to a month in length to a week in length to a day in length to literally a trend lasts for about 30 fucking seconds. So if we can get people to realize these trends are fucking stupid and constantly chasing trends is not going to benefit you in any way, shape, or form, then maybe people can wake the fuck up and start being more fiscally responsible and getting their financial lives back on track.
Yeah, there's a couple things the older generations get right and a couple things they get wrong. The reality is, to get in the median price home, the household has to make $120,000 in this country. Some spots are going to be higher, some are lower, but that is the median.
Yep.
That is double. The monthly income required is now $3,120 on a monthly basis. Ownership costs, that alone, which has doubled since 2020. That is not something an older generation had to deal with. But something the older generation is right about is the cost of most things in our lives as a percentage of our income has actually gone down outside of a few key areas. The key areas where it is not is buying a home, healthcare, pretty important, and the cost of school, also pretty important. But as far as things like groceries, even going out to eat, many of the dopamine fueling things that we like to chase, as a percentage of our income, they have actually gone down. So there's...
And that's what the majority of people bitching and moaning about the cost of things, that is the number one thing people complain about. Groceries. Everybody goes, oh, groceries are so expensive. Groceries are so expensive. That is the number one thing. Here's the issue, though. They're seeing the increase in prices in the grocery store, but guess what? Their wages have also gone up. Okay? While price of groceries has gone up, and that is a multifaceted reason as to why those pricings have gone up. There's multiple, that's a layered response. But wages at the same time have also increased. And I would postulate that wages have actually increased beyond the increased rate of groceries. But people don't see that because people just see, price, the numbers on the tags going up. That's all they see. They don't factor in, like, they're actually making a bit more money in comparison. And it's just like, oh, well, this is now more. And people could afford it if they basically didn't only buy crap. And if they, didn't always buy the big name brand. And if they maybe if they bought like a store brand or a no-name brand instead of the name brand because it's the same fucking thing, it's like that's the factor. Like all the people that talk about like the grocery prices are out of control, they are looking at the top brands. They are looking at the number one name brands of that particular grocery item. They are not even glancing at the alternative brands, no-name brands, store brands. They're not even looking at them, and they're only looking at the top, essentially speaking, the top shelf. Yeah, they don't need to consider buying bulk. Exactly.
I buy store brand because I get an employee discount. 10%.
Oh, lucky you. Lucky you there. But like store brand, 90% of the time, store brand is just as good as name brand, and you're getting it for probably about 3/4 or less of the price. There's absolutely nothing wrong with store brands. 9 times out of 10, it's the same manufacturing process. It's the same ingredients. It's just it doesn't come in the colorful packaging, and that's part of it too. Like that is like research goes into this for companies where basically when it comes to packaging, they have full on like R&D departments in terms of their branding. Like, okay, they actually get full on scientific with this, where they basically like, okay, what can we put on the package that will draw the eye more and make people want to buy our product? There's full fucking teams that figure this out. And that's a big part of it, is when you're walking down the aisle of a grocery, the name brands have the bright, shiny packagings that jump out to your eye, and you go,
Being unable
ooh,
to prosecute
it
theft
looks
also
great.
increase prices.
It looks great. The packaging looks amazing. So surely the product must be better than all the rest. When it's not, because the bright and shiny name brand that's right next to the store brand, and the store brand is just plain old packaging, it's going to be 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the same fucking thing in both the containers. But people, because human beings are visual creatures, our primary means of identifying threats or or you're an acceptable mate, or basically just functioning in life, our primary sense is sight. We are sight-based creatures. So when we are shopping, it's basically it's the peacock. It's like the what do I want to call it? It's like the peacock fallacy. We look for the bright and shiny and colorful and think that's good, when it's not. But our lizard brain goes bright and shiny equals good, so we're going to be drawn to the bright and shiny. And we have to basically fight against the lizard brain to go, okay, bright and shiny does not necessarily mean good. The dull and plain, that's the exact same thing, is still just the same, and it's going to cost me less.
A lot of things that are better about living in the current times as a younger person, but there are objectively some things that are worse that the older generations need to realize. But of course, it was the older generations that put in the zoning restrictions that we have across this country that made the homes go up in value the way they have.
True story.
So I guess we have them to thank for that.
You just gave some parents and grandparents.
Well, that and the boomers that are still in control and still making these decisions while not grasping the fact that it's now 2026. Shit needs to change. This is why using your power to vote is so important. Yeah, well, if they refuse to retire the power, then you need to use your power of the vote to make them relinquish that power. This is why I tell you guys, vote. Not worry about just the federal elections, but your state and your local ones too. You start small. When it comes to your power of the vote, start small. Start local. Your mayors, your city councilmen, your school boards. You start small. Get people that you want in there, then you can start moving bigger and start moving on to state. Start voting for your governor and for your state senate and house. And then once you get that done, then you can start worrying about the federal. But start small in focusing your efforts. Vote, get out there and encourage other people to vote. Campaign for the people that you want to see in those positions of authority that are going to be beneficial to your local, to your town, to your schools, to whatever. Then that will take things on the right path. Start local, and then you can start working your way up.
Parents some valuable ammunition on this Father's Day. So just hats off to that. We were talking about sort of the simple things, or maybe not so simple, but everyday buying and purchases that might actually make a difference in someone's budget. What are you telling people to ride out some of the problems that are hopefully temporary, like, for example, high gas prices?
Yeah, I mean, that is a reality. If you're not in an electric car, you have to ride out the high gas prices. But what you do have control over in the end is the car that you get. And we know in America that people get more car than they need. They spend way more on a car than they need, on a newer car, to justify it with safety ratings, fuel efficiency, which can be beneficial right now, but they still get into a $50,000, $60,000 car on an 8-year term at 12% interest, and it absolutely destroys their household budget. It just doesn't work in the end. Yes, in America, we need a car to have a job to pay for our car. That is a reality. That is the infrastructure that we live in. But you do have the choice on how much car you get. And get it checked out by multiple mechanics before you sign that deal. Make sure you're not getting any predatory interest rate. But you still have the choice on the car that you get, which is a big determining factor on your monthly budget, even if you can't actually choose between the gas prices.
As far as gas prices, I've been seeing it by me. They are starting to come down. I am like those gas prices are starting to come down. They were high. They were high without question, but I'm seeing them noticeably coming down. They are. So the whole thing about the gas prices, that excuse is already, after only like a month, is starting to go away, and the prices are indeed coming down. Yeah, the CNN person doesn't look up. Yeah, because Caleb's too smart for him, and he's not giving him that gotcha. He's not falling into the traps that the CNN guys lay. Caleb's being factual. The reporter is looking for an excuse to start talking about minorities or something. Like, what about the minorities who are living in poor, that are disenfranchised by the economy simply because they're minorities, which is a fucking lie in and of itself. And Caleb's not giving it to him because he is only stating facts. He's not bringing up any kind of like ethnicity, race, social status, nothing like that. He's bringing up just straight facts. And the reporter is like struggling to try and find something to trap him with on it.
How would you're talking about doing so much work on the front end, which obviously sounds great on paper and advice. Some people, I think, just get in there and just, get me the quickest thing as possible so that I can get out and do what I need to do. How would you compare sort of the risk factor of delinquencies on payments, for example, that maybe they didn't quite think out versus the work on the front end in terms of cost?
Well, if you're not willing to put in the work on the front end.
Wait, I want to hear this guy's question again, because I'm trying to track his logic of what he's asking.
People, I think, just get in there and just, get me.
Hey, I want to hear the reporter's question again, because it kind of didn't make any sense. So I want to hear that again.
On your monthly budget, even if you can't actually choose between the gas prices.
Let's see if I understand what he's trying to say.
How would you're talking about doing so much work on the front end, which obviously sounds great on paper and advice. Some people, I think, just get in there and just, get me the quickest thing.
Okay, so you're saying so many people just work on the front end, which is they're spending, spending money on bullshit, buying a car you don't need, buying a house you don't need. Okay, so I did work on it, and now he's talking about people just like get in here and fix it for me.
As possible so that I can get out and do what I need to do. How would you compare sort of the risk factor of delinquencies on payments, for example, that maybe they didn't quite think out versus the work on the front end in terms of cost?
Okay. What I think he's saying, what I think this reporter's saying is, what is the risk of defaulting on a bill or defaulting on a loan versus taking care of your front end needs? It sounds like that's what he's asking. Like, which is more valuable, maybe? Is it more valuable to take care of your things that you're going to default on versus your front end spending, or should you work on your front end spending and let things default? Is what it sounds like he's asking. Maybe, I don't know. It was a lot of fucking word salad. So maybe I could be misinterpreting what he's asking. What does defaulting mean? Basically, if you have like a debt or a loan or something, and you don't pay it. You don't pay it in lieu of basically taking care of the front end of, your food, your car, your living expenses, stuff like that. And instead, you have a loan on whatever and you like default on it or something is what I think this reporter is talking about. Granted, he did a lot of he did a lot of word salading. So I could be completely misinterpreting him. Bear that in mind. Like he's trying to sound smart. And in the end, the question he just asked, all of the viewers I guarantee you the majority of viewers that watch this interview had the same reaction that I did when he asked that question, which was, huh? The fuck did you just say? So let's see how let's see if Caleb can clarify for us.
Well, if you're not willing to put in the work on the front end for pretty much anything, you're going to face consequences for it. And when you have delinquencies and whatnot, if you have that affecting your credit, that impacts everything down the line. The next time you get a car, you're going to be getting like a 20% interest rate, and you're going to be getting something predatory. You won't be approved for anything beyond that. You're not going to get an interest-free period on a credit card transfer, most likely. You are going to always be in a harder time. Get an apartment, you're not just putting down a security deposit, you're also going to be putting down first month, last month. So the question is basically on anything you do when it comes to taking out a debt is you really need to understand your budget. You need to plug everything into something like that. Otherwise, understand where your money's already going, how much you can afford, or else you will end up in those defaults or delinquencies. But before you ever miss a payment or allow it to actually go there, make sure you call your creditor first. There are many options. Even on that vehicle like we were talking about, they can take that payment and put it on the end, and they'll do that for a few of them. They will before they come and repo your car, because they actually make more money in the end. That's just more time for interest to accrue. Even on credit cards, they'll put you on a lower interest payment lower payment plan as well for a while. They want their money. If you default, they sell it for pennies on the dollars. Many of them will work. They will work with you, but you have to call them first.
Oh, there it is. So I'm wondering if the reporter was trying to get Caleb to basically pick one. Like, I'm almost wondering if this reporter was trying to get Caleb to go, well, which is more important, and looking for him to give a direct answer of, well, it's more important that you pay your upfront stuff, or it's more important that you pay your back end stuff so you don't default. And Caleb basically just smacked the fuck out of him and just said you would take care of all of it if you're smart about it. When you take out a loan, figure out if you can handle this loan in the first place. If you do find yourself getting behind, you can basically, there's an option for you to, as Caleb was saying, to call these creditors and say, hey, I'm in a spot. Can we work something out for temporarily while I'm in this tough space? And a lot of times the creditors will work with it. So he basically just said he's got an answer for everything. And the reporter is probably upset that he didn't pick one or the other, so he couldn't just go, aha, well, what about this poor minority group that is disenfranchised? Caleb didn't give that to him. Fucking vote. Love it.
Caleb Hammer, host of Financial Audit on YouTube, CEO of DollarWise. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. And if you watch his YouTube, this was the least direct, most calm version of the conversation that I think I've seen you have. But I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Fucking based Caleb. Love it. Yeah, that reporter a couple times, you could tell he wanted to gotcha him, and Caleb just went, I don't fucking think so. Well, Caleb, well done. This is why we love our angry money man. He can go angry money man, but he can absolutely go cold facts that you cannot shake him with. Love it.